Yes, there we are.
Hmm.
I think we go with screen. That's probably the way to go. So you should see my email is in front of you. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So now you all know what email I've got. You can go and contact all my clients for me. Okay. So we've got a number of images that have been sent in, and that's really great because it just makes it so much more pertinent to you guys, and it makes it more fun for Peter and I as well. So here we have a eucalyptus foliage that's showing significant signs of problems, and I'll see if I can just enlarge it a little bit more, just so you get it in nice and big. And you can see these dark patches, and everyone knows what they are. Yep.
Mm.
What are they? Anyone? Just what do you know about them straight away from what you see?
The margins aren't clear or even.
The margins aren't very clear or even. Is it, let's look at it, breaking it down. Is it likely to be biotic or abiotic on probability?
Oh.
Living or not living? I mean, let's just say we could get this effect if we got some methylated spirits or some petrol and we just splashed it on some foliage.
Hmm.
But if we did, we'd expect it to be splashed on all the foliage, and it's not. So it's on some foliage and not on others.
I think it's due to insect, some sort of insect.
It could be from insects, yeah. There's a little bit of a giveaway, Vicky, and that is some little black dots in here and little black dots in here. And this is a fungus. This is microfungi. And these microfungi are really common. Lots of them, not well described, not well documented. There are some that are better known than others. But so this is a fungal infection on a leaf. And leaves get fungal infections frequently. Again, you can see these little black dots up in this region here. They're called pycnidia. It's a particular type of fruiting body. And again, they help us identify it. So this is one of those things where having a leaf is great, and then being able to put it under a microscope is even better. So if you could look at that under a microscope, you'd see little dots. And I'll see whether I can find for you, and you're going to ask me to spell this, and as you've probably gathered, my spelling is atrocious. Oh, well, every now and again it happens and it gets right. So we want to go to images, and you can see my Google search screen now, yes?
Yep.
Yeah. So these are these little black sort of miniature volcanoes that we see, and they help us identify that it's a microfungi. And so you'll see this commonly on a leaf. Won't see it without, at my age, so Rob, you sit the same category, Peter, without a loop. Some of you younger fellows may get to see them without a loop, but nowadays I need the loop to be able to confirm that that's what they are. So they are small, they are microscopic. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at some form of fungal infection. What do you do about it? Well, there's very few things that are approved for treating specific fungal issues on most trees. So in most cases, if you're going to do anything, it's just going to be very broad, something like mancozeb or something in that range. Again, there's been some work done out of Bartlett Labs in the UK by Glyn Percival, looking at the use of salicylic acid, so willow chip in particular was used, and that was shown to help improve the plant's defense system. And you've got to keep in mind that whilst we don't see it, when the spore lands on the leaf picks that up biochemically. It can sense it biochemically, and it attacks back biochemically. That seems really weird to us because that's all at a level we don't see and operate at. So if we can help the tree's defense system, that's good. often these things come about because we have lots of alteration to the environment. We get stress, and these stresses come with the consequences of increased disease and those sort of things. And the other thing that contributes to it is how we manage things like irrigation. Now, this looks like eucalyptus, or maybe even Corymbia ficifolia. Whose shot is it?
It's mine. It's in a street. It's a grafted, dwarfish looking eucalyptus.
Grafted, it'll be a ficifolia. Yeah. So this is a Western Australian species grafted onto eastern stock in order to avoid the problems with root diseases that they're prone to, but still prone to an abnormally wet season, Peter, up your end of the world, for more than 12 months, a lot of stresses. And so I'm imagining that's the contributing factor. So hopefully that answers that one.
So, Mark, in the other photo, you can see quite a few new shoots have wilted as well from the same.
Yeah, so it's really having a hard time at things, Peter. So there's, again, typical fungal response. Why? This is a Western Australian species. If it's grafted, I'm almost certain it's ficifolia from that description. And you're just asking a lot for a species that grows well. Mick, is Mick online? Western Australia, Perth, you might get a rainfall.
Yeah.
What's your average rainfall? About 500 mils a year, 400 mils a year?
I thought it used to be about 800.
Is it?
But with climate change, it's probably less now.
And almost nothing during summer. Your summers are your dry season.
Yeah, summer we got bugger all.
Yeah. So summer's a dry season. So you've put it, Peter, or the person that's planted this has planted it in a summer moist environment that in a normal year would get what? 1,500 mils?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a big ask when you start messing around like that. So it just makes it more prone to diseases. And we've got to think about the environment we're growing things in order to think about the impact that has. So wet, dry, hot and cold, when those wet and dry periods occur, all have an influence. And I think, Vicky, you and I were talking earlier on about the impact that the wet and dry has had on the ironbarks in Sydney. Seeing a lot of stress on ironbarks. They don't seem to have coped quite well with the extremes that we've been having. So that's a typical sort of a response.
Mark, does what it's grafted onto have any effect?
Yeah, look, they're really interesting, Mick. There is some work that shows that there are some acquired benefits based on the rootstock. And we've been grafting. The eucalypts are hard to graft. This is probably a Tony Hoopman graft, very clever guy. But when it comes to eucalypts, they're difficult because they produce, or Corymbia, they produce kinobands, and they want to reject. A lot of trouble getting them to not fight each other. If you're getting something like citrus, our citrus industry in Australia exists because we can graft onto trifoliata rootstock, which is phytophthora resistant. Otherwise, your seed-based material or your cutting-based material just wouldn't cope with the East Coast at all. So we'd be stuck to growing in your end of the world, Mick, and up in the Ord River and a few other places, and largely the eastern states would be finished. So there is some acquired advantage, and there's some just general disadvantages. It's a tree that realistically, Tasmania, someone's on the group from Tasmania, ficifolia is a great tree. Melbourne in particular, where you're getting a little bit further out of the warm, humid areas of Melbourne, ficifolia again is a really great tree.
I've seen it grafted onto something like Corymbia maculata, because the union.
Yeah, maculata, citriodora, Torrelliana, lots of things have been played with.
Why is it grafted?
Because the roots don't like the warm, humid conditions of the eastern coast, and so they end up with root disease particularly easily. So they don't survive. So that's why they're grafted.
Does it make them any more canker resistant?
We don't have too many problems with cankers over here.
Combularia?
Sorry?
Combularia coriaca?
No, and if you get down to Tasmania, you have none. So again, it's just, and in Tasmania, they're just planted, they're not grafted. So Tasmania, they seem to do really well in. So, okay, there's our first one. Okay, this is an interesting one. This is a tree that's had a failure. Let me see if I can hide that up there so it's not in your way. We've had a failure of a stem of a things, and this is almost like it's been cut through. It's really straight. There's another little shelf here. And here's our tree that's had the failure. And I'm going to, that's good enough to see. What's the first thing anyone notices? Anything?
The pino built up around the top of the
Yeah, there's some dark
and some old wound wood. So there's
dark
been some
staining
wound
here.
defacing. Yeah.
And dark staining here. This suggests that this may have had a partial failure beforehand. The other thing that's interesting is if you see this, our rays have been twisted at 90 degrees again. This is this thing that Matic calls ray attack again. Awesome when it's failed. Can't tell you beforehand. So it's a pretty useless piece of information to have, except afterwards to accept that this is like a sudden limb failure or summer branch drop, or call it whatever you want. This is a part of what we'd have to consider the background risk associated with trees. That is, for all the trees we've got, they're out there and we can't detect them, we can't eliminate them, we don't know which ones they are, and they still collectively contribute to less than 1 in 5 million fatality rate a year. So it's what we call background risk. Some of these will fail. When they fail, we just say, well, yep, that's a part of having trees. Every now and again, one's going to give us this problem. Hopefully in time we learn more about it, because it is a little frustrating. So that's this top bit here where you can see it going around and you can see it peeling off sideways there. The next area is this broken edge here. And Peter, I think that's just purely tensile strength, and it's just popped during the failure process. So I don't think anyone's cut it. In fact, we know they haven't. Yeah, why does it do that? I just think the same reason as a carrot does it. Eventually, if you can get enough flex on something, it breaks, and it for whatever reason it breaks along a line, much as a carrot will often do. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it does. I thought it would be a bit vaguer than that, so that's good.
Yeah,
and still looks very weird to me.
It does, but you will see it. There's a little bit of what Matic then calls fiber kinking now here, but that's occurred as a result of just extreme load. So we're not talking about that failure. There's a little bit of a shake here and here. You can see where it's separated out from an old injury. So, the tree's been dealing with things for a little while. And I just look at this and say, yep, that's nice. The one thing I can be sure of now is this tree has had its risk reduced. that branch will never fall. It's done now. It's finished. So, and, in the old days, we'd say, let's see if there's a pattern or a process of regular failures. In most cases, we just ignore that. Interesting. I was with Mike Ellison last week, and we were having a chinwag about some of these things, and he cites a really interesting talk and paper that looks at common tree, in inverted commas, defects that lead to failure. And the research looked at it at failure patterns during a hurricane and essentially said that most of the things that we put as defects simply have no real effect on failure rates. So things like overextended branches was one that they just said, look, you can throw it away. It's not a good enough indicator. So I suspect that we'll end up at some stage or other with something similar in these sort of situations. Something's got to give. It's going to give at the weakest spot, but it's not weak until it's loaded beyond what we'd generally expect. Okay, next one. As it opens up. Is this the part that failed out, or is this a separate tree?
This is a different tree. This is a Viminalis subspecies. And this bit you're looking at the bottom of that picture is basically what was connected to the trunk. I don't know if you can actually see it in that photo, but that's the piece on the left there. So the branch got lopped off at some point and it was slowly dying. Obviously, there's no sprouts on it or anything. So, but yeah, basically the branch was dead. The branch on the left is a different story.
That's different, is it?
Yep.
Okay, and this is the one that we're concerned with.
Oh, actually, the photo is of the left one, and the right one. I don't know why that failed. I couldn't see anything wrong with that. But I was just more interested in because it looks like it's obviously a bit of rot in that wood.
It does look like
then there is a patch up above there, like a yellowish patch.
Yes. So that gives
fungal to me.
Some hyphae, and it may well be Phylinus, which has got that mustardy color hyphae to it. So mycelium here, a group of hyphae, gives us the ability to perhaps form that view. And it does look as though there's possibly some white rot here, but it's very hard to tell just from that image.
Yeah, it's not the best photo.
It's not the best photo, yeah. And again, there's some more musty looking material just in here. So it's quite possible you've had some decayed fungi having an effect. And one of the things we notice about Phylinus, white stem rot on the East Coast, and I'm assuming that it applies elsewhere, but it'll take other people to confirm that, is that where it acts as a stronger pathogen, it affects plant health. And when it affects plant health, you end up with the tree not responding as quickly. And so the fungus does more problems, often kills the host or kills the portion that's on. So if you're seeing a section die off, Viminalis, it may well be that this is acting as a little bit more aggressive pathogen. And that means the tree can't respond. So it can't strengthen itself. And so trees that do that for me here in the Sydney region would be something like Eucalyptus nicolai, Eucalyptus scoparia to a little lesser extent. It dies off. Saligna will sometimes be badly knocked back by it. Things like Mollicana laugh at it, and Terratacornis sort of fits in between Mollicana and something like Saligna. It's almost never affected to the point of failure. So it's going to have some issues. A couple of comments here. We have a few dwarf grafted Crimbia ficifolia that do well in Hobart. You've got some awesome Melanie, awesome ficifolias that are just planted standards, and they're just great, particularly as you get into Hobart City. So great place to go see them. Mick asked the question, how do we repair the wound from something like the shot that Peter showed us? And that's a really good question. How would you repair that?
Just leave it alone, I think.
Leave it alone seems to be a pretty good thing. If you've got some loose material, just trim it up. And, you know, most of my trimming is done with a box knife or a Stanley knife or whatever you want to call it. Do you see a little image of me on your screen, guys?
No.
Okay, well, you know what a box knife or a Stanley knife is. That's my primary tool. And here where this is exposed and it was very fresh, you could look at putting some lanolin on that just to get the bark to form up there from the wound face. But you don't want to put lanolin over any of these edges because these won't divide outwards like the outside of the stem will. So that's how I'd handle those. If I could, I might just quickly run a saw and just try and take some of the sharper bits out again, just to facilitate occlusion when the time comes. But I wouldn't go sitting there trying to plane it and do all of that. Just try and take the big bits out. Mick, your mic's off. Your mic's off, Mick. Yeah, there you go.
The bark on the edges, can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, the bark on the edges with your box knife, do you cut like a 45-degree cut on it?
No, just leave it as it is. I mean, it's going to produce, first of all, it's going to produce callus, and it's going to just, it's only a few cells thick, and then it'll start to produce wound wood, and it'll start to refigure out the plumbing fairly quickly. Down the bottom end here, it will tend to die back more to a V, which is one of the advantages of just treating that zone there and cleaning that little edge up, is you may well save, you know, from probably there down, you may well save it a few months of occlusion to maybe a year of occlusion just by doing that. Would I run out and do it? No, it's something that I'd say to a client, you could do it. You know, it probably sets you back as a client, maybe $200 or $300. You know, not doing it's not going to affect the tree. The tree will deal with it quite well over time. The same as trimming this back and trying to flatten that out a little bit. Yeah, in a perfect world, that would be great. But if you don't, the tree will deal with it.
What's the difference, please, between wound wood and callus tissue, and when does callus become wound wood?
Okay, callus is undifferentiated. That is, it's just lots of parenchyma. It's got no vessels. It's got no tracheids. It's got no fibers. It's got no rays. It's just parenchyma. And it's there for as long as the tree needs to resolve the problem. And it can take sometimes, you know, quite a while, maybe a few weeks. Sometimes it's just, as I said, 2 or 3 cells and that's it. And it's got it figured out. It says, yep, okay, I remember what I've got to do now. I've got to do this. You can see the difference microscopically. You can't see the difference from the outside. So as a result, we use the term, and it's pedanticism on Mark's part, Mick, but Mark is sometimes an anal pedant, and Mark will say it's not producing, it's not closing, it's occluding, it's not callusing, because it can't see the callus. So I would say it's occluding, and it's using wound wood to do that. Most of the occlusion is from wound wood. You won't see callus in general when you're looking at the wound closing. Sometimes you do, particularly just after the wound has been made. But usually by the time the wound's, you know, said 6 or 8 weeks old, and you're starting to see that little bit of callus, you're starting to see some wound wood on the outside come fairly quickly. And
Well,
I can
when,
show you that.
when we see the donut forming,
That's
callus.
That's wound wood.
That's wound wood. Okay.
Yeah. And it's, as I said, it's just pedantic because I know what people are saying, but if we get our terms right now, our usage right, it just helps us thinking in our thinking processes. So callus might be 0.5 mil to 1 mil thick. It's not often you see it a lot thicker than that. So that first 0.5 mil that's produced, and then as it goes across the wound, let me pull up some pictures. It might be easier. We need to go to a Google screen and go to pictures.
So the tree's first reaction is to produce callus, and then it produces wound wood over the top.
That's
of
right. Callus is all over the place tissue. CALUS, isn't it? No.
Double L, I think.
Double US. That's how it's done. No, I was hoping I might have a, oh yeah, okay. So this is probably callus on this cut here. Just very small amount that's just on the outer side. It's just starting to get into the process of occluding. Unfortunately, this thing was then cut down. It was African mahogany, I think, from Vietnam. That they'd cut down after they'd cut the thing partially. And so this, is produced in a fairly short period of time. If we look at wormwood in comparison,
That diagram that was up there a moment ago, Mark, that was interesting, I thought.
which diagram was that, Peter?
See the one on the right-hand side of the screen, is that?
Yeah, okay. That's fairly good, except most of this is wormwood if it's a bigger cut. And this is this trying to be pedantic about it process, and I do apologize. Let's see if I can find some wormwood for you. So these are typical. That's your wormwood there that you're seeing occluding. This is wormwood that's growing over the sign and covering it over. Amazing, isn't it, what they'll do? Wormwood. So all of these things are wormwood that we're seeing. We can't see the callus because the callus is all covered by the wormwood. Now, at a microscopic level, I can show you. And I'll do that by going S drive. Photos. Anatomy. And this question comes up regularly, hence why there's some pictures there. This is one of my favorite samples. This is a little Corymbia that's been eaten out by yellow-tailed black cockatoos. And so it's doing its best to try and occlude and deal with that. I'm just going to move that out of the way so I can operate. This is callus here. This is called a callus flare. It's where the two wounds have met, the two sides of the wound have met, and when they meet, they don't know where the hell they've got to put the plumbing. They don't know where the rays should go, don't know where the vessels go, so they produce callus whilst they're trying to figure that out. And if you look carefully, there's some callus along this margin here and this margin here. On the outside of that tissue that's occluding, there's wormwood. Let me find you some more. Okay, same thing here. This is the edge of the wound. So yellow-tailed black cockatoos. This is on Amelia zederac. They get Pittosporum longicorn, and the yellow-tailed black cockatoos come in and eat it. And you can see here, there's no rays going through here. There's no vessels. They start, you can see the margin along here. Yeah. That's the callus. And then the callus is going out along here. You can see fairly quickly it wants to start putting vessels in as it moves out from the center. This is quite a big zone of callus. This is probably maybe 6 or 7 millimeters across. That's untypically large. And again, once that got to this stage, all that you'd be seeing is wormwood. Mick, does that make it any clearer for you?
Yep.
See if I, again, you can see there's a thin layer of callus along here, along this bottom edge. And just out of curiosity, this is the wound face. So this is where it's been wounded. This is the wormwood growing over the top of it. What is this material here? This dark brown material.
Bark?
Bark. Who said bark?
Me.
Who's me?
Peter.
Oh, Peter. Yes, Peter, it's bark. There's bark on the outside of the occluding tissue. So we know this is not wall 4. This is just simply wormwood closing over a wound. Okay, a wall 4 is a very different response. And I say that because unfortunately there is a dictionary of arboriculture that's out there that says that the wood that closes over the wound is wall 4. It is not. Okay. Very different material. And there you can see the bark a little bit more clearly here. And we can show you that. And you can see here, there's a vessel starting there. There's a vessel starting there. Now these vessels are microscopic. They're 10th to 100th of a mil across. So they're not very big, but it gives you an idea that the callus is mostly on the inside and the woundwood's on the outside. So as I said, pedanticism, I apologize, but I figure if we get our language right, here's a great little set of experiments to show it for you. I'll open these ones up. So this is the same thing. We've got some callus down the bottom. This is a little harder because it's a gymnosperm. So you're getting your rays here. You can see them. They're getting but this is here. This has been decayed. So because it's been decayed, it's losing some lignin. And this side hasn't been decayed. This is still fairly fresh. And if we polarize it, we lose all this area here. And we lose this area here because this is bark. We lose this area here because the decay has had to go. So we can show you, even though it doesn't look like it, there's bark here that's 1, 2, 3 or 4 cells thick, and that's it. On the inside between the wound face and the wound. Those of you who are silly enough to do anatomy with me next month, we'll get to have a look at these things in detail. So we need to go back to our questions and images. So hopefully that answered the closing. You know, if you said it's closing over, it's occluding, it's producing callus, we all know what you mean. And I don't think anyone's going to beat up on you over it. But nice for us to use the right terms. Okay, this is a nice series of images that have been produced in a Word document to make life a little easier. What the hell have we got? It's growing on Amelia, I assume, a Zederac.
Yep.
Yep. And these look like burls, B-U-R-L. And there is a nice technical name, and I'm going to take a punt at it. I think it's a spheroblast, but I could be wrong. So it could be wrong. Someone will be able to figure out. There is a technical name they give to these things. Let's try burl, small egg. It'll probably give me a whole pile of turn material, yeah. Natural. Growth. So what these are simply meristematic zones that have breached out. So I don't see anything that someone might find it for me later on, but they do have a technical name and something like that. So that's what these are, meristematic zones that have breached out. I don't quite get what's happened here, but I assume that somebody's cut or damaged it at some stage or other, and that tissue in there has declined or gone backwards. And you'll see them commonly on lots of things. You'll see them on eucalypts. Hang on, let me try.
Can you get them on sugar gums?
Yeah, you can get them on lots of things. Tree egg. Yeah, a tree egg. Oh, I'll see. No, I can't find it, but it's on, and I'm happy to look for it between now and the next time round. Tree, how about a growth? Groth, WTH growth. So, I mean, that's essentially a larger version of the same thing. You'll get them all sorts of trees, and there's a relationship between them and loading, so that you can imagine our rays are held inside, and a meristematic trace is essentially a really big thick ray, is held inside tissue, the vessels and the fibers or the tracheids, depending on what we've got. And in a strong wind or in a strong loading situation, you'll get that open up. And as that opens up, can you see my fingers?
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. As it opens up, it gives room for some of that meristematic tissue to head to the other side and herniates. It goes to the other side, and then it divides more rapidly. And because it's dividing rapidly, you end up with these weird and wonderful growths. Okay. Now, I said the word meristematic trace. If I said it was a bud, a latent bud, you'd accept that. The problem with the term latent bud is it infers that there's a leaf primordia there, or the thing to produce a leaf. It's often not there. It's often produced later on. And so that's a pedanticism from Nathaniel de Belay from Canberra, who said to me, Mark, no, that can't be a bud. And he was absolutely right. Shy go for 40 points. It had to be a meristematic trace. And it's that sort of precision that I am talking about. I'm equally as guilty of saying these silly things as you guys are. It's trying to get our language consistent as a profession. So, and I will find out the name of that and either circulate it or have Peter give us some answers. Okay, so we've got a next one, a fruiting body, and I'll just make that image bigger so that everyone's got a fruiting body at the base of a tree. We've got a canker. Remember, a canker is just an area of dead tissue that's coming up through here. And if I was going to guess at that, by the looks of it, my first guess would be Pholinus. It's on the base of a eucalyptus.
Yeah, Minifera, yep.
Yeah. And Minifera are really prone to white stem rot. So,
Yeah, they are, yeah.
And it grows as a white pocket rot initially. And so you've got to keep in mind that there's not a lot of loss of strength to start off with. In the earlier stages, there's very little. So often you won't see the tree reacting for quite some time, even though the Pholinus is in there.
Yep.
And you'll get Minifera drop branches with or without it. So, you know, when it drops it with it, we say, oh, I could have told you that was going to fail. When it fails without it, well, that just destroys your argument. Realistically, it's just occasionally Minifera drop branches, and they've got a horrible, misfortunate common name, don't they?
Brittle gum. Yeah.
Brittle gum.
Yep.
Who on earth thought of that as a common name?
Yeah.
Might as well call them kid killer gum. Hairy caterpillar.
Yeah.
That. What's the first thing you know about hairy caterpillars from what we've discussed already?
Don't put it down your shirt.
Yeah, or put it down someone else's shirt if you want to know how irritating it can be. Oftentimes they're quite irritating. How would I identify that? I would save that as a picture. So let me go through the process now. I should be able to save as picture. Yeah, there we are. Save as picture.
Yeah, I tried through Google Lens, and that's what I came up with.
Yeah, okay, exactly. And that's a good starting spot, is to say, okay, what have I got? And then the thing I'd go back with, Andrew, is I'd then add in the word eucalyptus. I want to know whether it's something that is feeding on eucalyptus or metaceae. Just sometimes that's enough to get you the next stage. So I won't do it given that you've already done it.
Yep.
And, you know, it's fairly unique marking on the back of it. I think you might get to identifying genus and species on this one, because to me that looks like a teddy bear's head on the back of it. And so when you start to get these unusual things, you'll get a little bit better at identifying, but not always. Don Herbenson Evans, who's the Lepidopterist that I think is most brilliant in this area, he studied larvae of Lepidoptera as an amateur most of his life, and is quite, most of his senior adult life, from about the age of 40 odd onwards. And Don says that about 5% of our Lepidoptera can be identified from their larvae. That means 9 out of 10 times or 19 out of 20 times, you will just say it's in the order of. And there's some things that give you hints as to the order, but that's about it. And just because I like the thought of it, remember that not all caterpillars are bad. There are carnivorous caterpillars that eat other things, for example, scale. There's a number of scale-eating caterpillars. And we've got to be fair all the way around. There's also one vegetarian spider, just so you,
Okay.
you realize that not everything is the way that we want it to
Yeah.
be. There's some really weird things out there. So yeah, good approach to it. Okay, now this was an interesting question. Got an Angophora costata and we've got a big dead area, and what caused it?
Yeah, because the footpath doesn't look like it's that new. It looks quite old. So it wasn't.
Yeah,
I went with mechanical damage first, but I'm not too sure.
could be mechanical damage, could be a chemical spill, could be a failed attempt to poison. You know, there's all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Really hard after the event. The thing that would concern me about that is that's getting close to 50% of the circumference.
Yeah.
The good thing that gives me some confidence is not a lot of decay in this wood here yet by the looks of it. And it's a fairly resilient timber. That is, it takes a bit of time to decay. We don't like cavities with a 50% opening.
Yeah.
That's eventually got the chance of getting there unless it puts on enough new tissue in the meantime. So what does that mean?
Well, it means you might have to take action on the tree.
Okay, so what action would you take?
You
If
could-
if
you could
you were a concerned individual and you thought, yep, not feeling comfortable about that, and I would feel some discomfort, and I might put that, if you're using something like QTRA, probability of failure, I might put that as something that's in the probably 5, down.
Yeah, I just did QTRA last week with Mike.
Okay, so it's 100 times, 100 times more likely to fail than the average tree. I still benchmark the tree as 7 because it appears to be healthy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's a photo
Yeah.
further down of the whole tree.
Sorry, there's a photo of the whole tree here.
Yeah, just there.
And it's definitely Angophora.
Yeah, the whole street had a few Angophora costatas on the way down.
Yeah, lovely tree. And they do really well as an urban tree. They do well because they grow in incredibly rich soils and grow to giants. And they'll also grow as almost a mallee on the rocky outcrops of the Sydney region, at least, where, you know, the amount of soil is really barely enough for them to be any more than small trees.
Yeah,
That means they're suitable for, they do well with low rainfall.
yeah, yeah. This area has low rainfall. It's in the western suburbs of Melbourne.
So you can see canopy density is fairly good. So
Yeah,
what would I do? Low use street, I'd probably not worry about it, but I know what the local council's probably like. And someone's going to say, well, we've got to do something. So the answer is I'd go up and look at some small reduction pruning.
Yep.
Try and keep my cuts smaller than, say, 5 centimeters, and just do a number of, you know, little cuts in areas like here and here. You know, you might get 30 or 40 cuts out of the thing. Keep 90% of your canopy, 95% of your canopy. We want canopy because we want new growth.
Yep.
Want canopy because we want the health of the tree.
Yeah.
We don't want to over prune, and that's the real risk. And it looks like there has been some history of pruning on this side. And I might be wrong, but it looks like it might be to do with the householder on this side.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
And that makes me wonder whether this is, you know, somebody who's done something similar, you know, maybe out here whilst they've been playing with a fence or a garden, said, maybe we should just paint a bit of glyphosate or something like that as a topical application.
okay. Yeah.
Secondary dieback.
If you look at this tree and the vitality of the tree, would you say that, and it looks like it's had some good growth in the last season, would you say that this tree is probably going to be okay in the next few years?
Yeah, look, again, if this was over the single main walkway into a school with 1,000 students,
Yeah, your target goes up. Yeah,
on a road like this, I'd not worry about it. I've got trees with parts on it that are more likely to fail, dead trees in my suburb, that I just ignore and just know that every time I drive underneath one, there's about a 1 in 400,000 chance that I'm going to get killed by it. And, you know, I'm the guy, don't record this, Peter. I'm the guy that, you know, will occasionally use my mobile phone whilst driving. I've been known to play chess. I've been known to read magazines whilst driving. Yeah, you know, I look at a risk of the, you know, 1 in 400,000 of being hit as, you know, something that's small type.
Yeah, that's the one thing I took out of Mike's QHRA is to don't condemn the tree so easily. Think about it more.
Yeah, and so reduction printing would give you an opportunity to retain it. I'm sure that if you went and knocked on the door of the house beside, not perfectly sure, but got a high degree of confidence, they'd say, oh no, I'd like to get rid of the tree.
Yeah.
Just because of that flat face.
Yeah.
And let's discuss that flat face. What effect does cutting all those branches off have on the tree in real terms?
Well, it takes away carbohydrates for one.
Yep.
Also changing the distribution, weight distribution. Mark, can you draw back a bit further?
Yeah, I can do it. Thank you for that, Mick. Let me get you guys off to the other side. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but
So
I'm not so much.
it reduces the mass damping effect of the branches and kind of stiffens the remaining branches. So
It does. It's amazing how often when you see new power lines go in, and you see less of it nowadays. In the early days, you know, we used to see them put along kilometres along the roads, you know, road widening, new road, and bang. In fact, they've done it recently up near the new airport in Sydney. And then they run new strands up, and you never see the trees fail as whole failures. Occasionally, you might see parts fail. And that makes good sense in the sense that, yes, there is some rotational load associated, but that's nothing compared with what wind does when you get the wind loading on a full canopy. So we'll see things like more torsional failures and more branch failures, but whole tree failure, the fact that all the canopy's on one side, just ignore it from a tree perspective, unless you've got something wrong with the root system down here.
That's
Okay.
what I was going to ask, because looking, as you know, when you're describing the cavity being up to 50% or more, good chance you've got all your compression roots on one side, the tension roots that would have been underneath the footpath are dead, you know, potentially. And because there's nothing feeding them on that side, you know, which way is north relative to this and where the prevailing winds come from?
Well, let's put the prevailing winds in the worst way possible for you, Derek. Which way would you like them to come from?
Well, they'd be coming from the house to the right against the tree.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it hasn't got any tension support. It has to be all compression.
This is the great news. I'm pretty certain that the roots on the compression side are more important than the roots on the tensile side. And the reason I say that is the roots on the tensile side aren't under tension, they're under flex. The roots that are under tension go straight down. And the roots that go straight down are strongest by a long way in terms of support of a tree. And you know this.
I was going to say, I agree with you, though I've had a few failures, whole tree failures, where the sinker roots were only 50, 70 mil in diameter, not very deep at all, because the area they're trying to grow into was compacted, and it was solely reliant on the surface roots.
I agree, Derek. And the other one that I've seen in your end of the world, or out in our end of the world, is the grey box psyllid. When it knocked the trees back and they came back, often they didn't have anything in terms of growth for several years, and a lot of the sinker roots died. Away. And so in the 2 microbursts that hit Blacktown Council, we saw a lot of grey box with, you know, roots that would have otherwise had some holding, just slough out of the ground.
Yeah, they were now black.
Yeah, that's right. They were black and typical anoxic roots. So there are exceptions to the rules, but yes, the general rule is compression far more important. For those of you who haven't heard it or haven't thought of it before, think about a Christmas tree stand. Got yourself a nice big round Christmas tree stand, and you've got your tree in the middle, and now you cut one part right up to the trunk. It'll fall to the side where there's no roots acting in compression. Now you can stabilize that, just put one bolt through into the ground and bolt it down. That's intention. And it'll never fall over. That
Mm.
Christmas tree will be there forever. Or a screw. Let's get extra slack. Next Christmas, grab out, if you've got a wooden floor, grab out a nice big long Phillips screw and go and drill it in, and you need nothing almost. Or get under the house and drill up through into the stem of the tree, and you don't even need a Christmas tree base. That shows you the strength of tension. Okay, and that tension is downwards, not inflex laterally. Okay, so hopefully that's of help in sorting that out. Where did that come from? It's a misunderstanding of some earlier authors' works that suggested that the roots on the tension side are a lot longer on a leaning tree, and that's true. The reason they're longer is they don't need to get fat, so all the effort that they put is in extending themselves rather than in thickening themselves. Okay. This is this bit about overextended.
Is that mentioned in the standard, Mark? That the
It's one of
tension.
the things in the standard that we've called for revision on is just clarifying that. It is, as Derek said, one of the things we need to be clear on is shallow soils and in saturated soil conditions. And you've probably all seen the heaving forests of birches up in Europe, where the whole forest, the root systems just go up and down because it's saturated below and they're just sitting there on top. So overextended branches, is it overextended? Does the tree know it?
I'd have a
It's
look at the
normally
shape of the branch close to the trunk.
So, Rob?
See what shape the branch is close to the
Yeah,
trunk,
okay,
and whether it's putting extra wood on the bottom.
It will be putting extra wood on the bottom. And there is a hot spot that it might, and there's fairly good taper in this one by the looks of it. And let me zoom in a bit more. Not the best image, I apologize. But if you're really, really, really worried about this being an overextended branch, my answer again is probably 4 to 6 cuts of 5 centimeters in diameter towards the outer edge here, just to slow it down. Its function has come first here. What's the function of a branch?
Create carbohydrates so get to sunlight.
Yeah. Put solar panels out where they need to be to get some energy. Exactly. So every now and again, the function overrides the form, and it can cause problems. You see it with sweet gums or liquid ambers. We'll often put a branch, and all of a sudden it'll be shooting up the side with an almost elbow bend trying to get taller.
Yeah.
And they tend to fail. Now, as a result, a wonderful guy in Sydney, Vic Chicocola, came up with the, I think it's not called Oakhurst, oak something or other, cultivar with beautiful conical liquid amber that just doesn't misbehave. There's problems with using clonal material, but, again, it's nice genetic material to start with. So
I just find the whole conversation really interesting around overextended branches, because the term's used so much in our industry, but it seems like it's not something that we need to be that worried about like we have been.
no, and what we definitely don't want to do is what I see regularly when someone says that branch is overextended, and that is the cut here. It's just vile. I want to scream. I want to yell. I want to say no. If it's overextended, if I take 5 or 6 branches out here that each weigh 20 kilos, I've just taken 100 kilos out of the end. I've just taken half a ton or a ton off here, and off every little bit along the way, all the way out to the end. So now, got to be fair. The other side, it will affect, as Peter says, mass damping. So the average size of our cut, I suggest, has some correlation. Maybe there's some causation there, some correlation to the average size of a failure, if a failure does occur. So you're better off making a number of smaller cuts than 2 or 3 big cuts.
Yep.
That's just a big, horrible cut.
Yep.
And I see it just so often because it's an overextended branch, and that's what we need to do. This little guy here is obviously what?
I wasn't too sure if it was Velinus or Ganoderma, or it could be completely wrong.
It is Phlinus.
Okay,
It's
yep.
squarer than it is narrow. So if it was just that height, we didn't have all this here, all the top bit, quite thin, less than half the height, half the width high, then Phlinus, Ganoderma. If it's more than half the width high, so half our width, that there from there, that's about equal. That's Phlinus. Brown on the underside. Okay. And if you knock this little one off here, you'd probably see some of the hyphae growing underneath it, and it'll be mustardy in color. So that'll give you the thing. And this looks like you've had some aura activity associated with this as well.
Yep. It's just the same tree, just the decline of the tree.
Yeah. So time to say goodbye to the tree. Probably.
Yeah.
And this is this bit that Phlinus can create a far more pathogenic or far more aggressive environment that kills the conductive tissue off. So it gets in and it stops the movement of sugars up and down. You'll see that the affected part die. And, you know, I often get asked, not often, I occasionally get asked to do a tomograph or resistograph of a stem that's been affected by Phlinus like that. And I say, why bother? I can see that it's killing the tree.
Yeah.
Killing that piece. That's the end of it. I'm not, it's not about decay now. It's about function again. It will die. It might take a year or 2 or 3, but why do I want to worry about decay? I just want to worry about how am I going to manage that piece.
Yeah.
Can I ask if there's something going on with the tree next to it? Or is that bit of dieback going on in the background the same tree?
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit more dieback in the background there. A separate tree?
I think it's a different tree. Yeah, separate tree.
Oh, okay.
Okay, this is a fun one.
Yeah, I had no idea what's going on here.
Tree does though. It's been injured, it's been hit, and the bark has been pulled off. And bark has attached to it some parenchyma, and parenchyma are the living cells. So there's living cells and dead cells in wood. The living cells say, well, you know, I can be whatever I want to be. And I've just got a message from the good mother tree that says, we've been injured. I could go out and I could become new wood, new bark. I could produce callus. And if I produce callus, I could produce bark and wound wood. And it's done it on both sides. And you'll see this is not that uncommon. You'll get to see it fairly frequently. I think I can pull one up for you. Again, I have to go back about 2 years in the Windwood collection.
Yeah, because that looks like mechanical damage where something's being dragged along the side of the tree and peeled the bark out.
Yeah. I mean, it's often done by a vehicle under impact. And
It'd be someone who can't park a trailer.
Yeah.
I thought I might have had it down. It's around Campbelltown. Let's just see if we can do it. CAMPBELLTOWN. I think it is NSW. How's that?
Oh, there we go.
Same process. The bark has been pulled off. You can see splinters of wood coming out of it. Pretty neat. If you had grandkids, you could tell them that Trident left his, whatever his name is, left his trident there. And but that's just vehicle impact again, pulling the bark out. If you're quick and straight after the injury, that's again where you'd apply lanolin, and oftentimes you can get wood to produce again. And I can show you that. It's easy at its extreme.
Is this something that happens to rough bark trees as well?
Yep. I thought I had another one, but this will be enough. So this has been treated with lanolin, and you can see all this area here is new barks developed. If we go back to the original, this should be there. There it is. There's no bark there. It's been hit by an excavator. So we're just getting the bark to grow back from the wound face. And you can get complete occlusion, and things that are really good at it. And one that I love dealing with is brushbox, Lophosmin confertus. This one was ring barked, 300mm wide strip with a hammer, claw hammer. They beat the bark off, and then it was treated the same day or the day after and stayed good. This one was a transplant where they slipped off the bark of a jacaranda, treated the same day, and this is it about 4 years later. Just new bark. It's quite messy under here. The vessels and the rays are going all different directions because it's got to join up all these little islands. So it does have an effect, but better not a dead tree than a dead tree. And just so you can see it actually happening in real life, this is amazing. This is the ray that's come out of a Tilia cordata, and the Tilia, you can see now, we know this is Callus mick here. So it's produced these little Callus islands, and they've fused together a new bark, even though all that wound there had lost all of its wood. You can think this is a three-dimensional thing. So down here, maybe another millimeter, there's another little bit that sticks through, and so on. And so they just coalesce and form new wood. So you can have the bark knocked off a tree and have it completely produce a new bark on the outside. If you keep enough of the bark when it comes out, you can do it from the bark side back in. So you get it coming from both directions, because the rays, trust me on this one, the rays go all the way through the wood. Look, this is our bark here. See the bark?
Yeah.
Okay, let me zoom in a bit more so you can see that. So the rays go all the way through the bark. When we knock this off here, this parenchyma, rays are made up of living cells. This parenchyma here can say, oh, you know what we should do is we should produce new bark, and then we should produce wood. So you'll get wood coming in from two different directions. Hopefully that explains it well enough for you. Mick, was that clear enough for you? I know
Yes, thanks, Mark.
questions.
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
Okay, I often see trees with a side missing when they're grown in rows as well. Yes, closely spaced and tightly tied to wires. Yep. It's a difficult. Is Phalaenus an aggressive pathogen? Depends on the host. Okay. And let me make it even worse than depending on the host. It depends on the host and the isolate of Phalaenus where you are. That is different. Phalaenus behaves, or fungi behaves differently based around a range. So let me ask you, a tree man, big, muscular, thumping big guys? Well, the answer is yes. A tree guy's thin, delicate, finely built ladies? Yes. They're still tree people. I shouldn't use the word tree man. Someone's going to write to me and chastise me now, but you get my point. Is there's this variety within the genome of human beings. There's this variety in the genome of.
There's also a lot of different Phalaenus species as well, isn't there?
Yes, but our main one is, we suspect now, and I give up because it's DNA only. So Phalaenus noxious has now been declared a New Zealand species, not present in Australia or in limited numbers in Australia. And what we've got here is Phalaenus badius as our most common one. That's the current literature that I've read, and that's based on DNA, and that's why we're pushing with, unfortunately, with fungi. Someone said, ouch. Yes, ouch is ouch, but cutting off the branch is the worst ouch. Could the lack of branching on one side be due to poor nursery growing conditions? On that earlier one, they were actually visible, and you might not have seen on the screen, 3 or 4 cuts of about 150 mils or so going towards the property owners. Yes, growing tree beside each other. And one of the ones that we see most commonly and it'd be interesting to discuss is, do you have Leighton's green hedges where you are, people? Or is it just in Sydney? You don't have them, Rob?
No.
Okay, so we have these Leighton green hedges, you know, Capressus or Capresso or Hespercypirus or whatever it might be this week, growing one beside another. And cypress tend to have meristematic traces that aren't very long lived. So after about 3 or 4 years, they're dead. And so you lose one tree in the row and you'll end up with this big brown face from where it was budded up to the next one. If you've got something like lily-pilly, for example, you know, they have meristematic traces that last for decades. In that situation, you lose a tree in a row for some reason, you know, car comes through it or, you know, gets damaged by a mower or whatever, the adjacent trees will fill that space in a lot quicker because their meristematic traces are long-lived. Is there a book or website on tree-specific fungi? Oh boy, that's a really good question. No, but there are lots of books on fungi, macrofungi in particular. On eucalypts, there's a wonderful textbook by Kyle and Podge, and it's available digitally as a free download through one of the overseas organizations. I can't think of which, but if you want, I'll go find it for you. Just email Peter and we'll share the link with you. Or put up a note and I'll share the link. But Kyle and Podge list a number of decay fungi and also a number of other fungi that affect eucalypts. And that's probably the best text that we have. Most of our fungi that affect trees aren't identified. Is probably an easiest way to express it. And there's some new things happening all the time. So for example, in the botanic gardens in Cairns, a new species of fungi has been identified that's a primary pathogen that's killing off a wide range of palms and trees. So it's a broad spread primary pathogen. So I wish there was a book that made it easy, but keep in mind the ones that we need to worry about are limited down to less than a dozen that we're going to commonly see in any one area. It's just that some of you may have to talk to some of the locals to find out what that unusual one is that's affecting trees in your area. And you'll know it's affecting trees. You'll see the sporocarps, you'll see all the microscopic evidence, depending on what it is, or the hyphae. You'll see trees dying and say, what's causing this? And someone will come back with an answer. So, you know, fortunately, trees are very resistant to fungi. Why? And how can I say that with confidence? If they weren't, you'd have no trees. You know, only a very small percentage of trees are affected by it. And when you're looking at the stem rots, regardless of whether it's ladioporous, whether it's, you know, piptoporous, whether it's phylinus, those trees, those fungi don't want the trees to fail often. And the reason they don't want the tree to fail is if the tree fails, dinner's gone. Dinner's gone, and now they've got to compete against every other fungi that's at the low levels. And there are more fungi down close to the ground than there are up high. Okay, and that's one of the reasons. And if you haven't seen some of her work, go online. There's some lectures on YouTube, I'm pretty sure, of Lynn Bodie, Professor Lynn Bodie. And Lynn talks about this relationship between endophytes and decay on European or on Quercus and one other species in particular they've studied. And it's almost certainly the same thing here. That is, these things like Phylinus and Ganoderma are often there beforehand, before the tree is seriously injured, coexisting and being some benefit. Okay, so that they can occupy. So I think we tend to worry about those things way too much. Okay, if I go back to the emails, I want to get through the rest of these before. Okay. I guess the first question is this armillaria? Whose sample? Mark. Mark's there or was.
Oh, yep,
Yeah.
yep, I'm here.
Do we know it's armillaria?
I'm not game enough to eat any of it to see how fair it is, but
Please, you need to be a pea-sized piece of the most toxic one that we know of, which is Amanita phallus, is not toxic. If you spit it out, it won't have any effect on you at all.
it's going to taste bad though.
It, if it's chili-like, you'll know it's chili-like. It's, you know, got this hot peppery chili flavor. Or we could take a spore print.
I haven't done that yet.
So a spore print will give you some answers. It looks to me like it's Genopolis. And it looks like it because that looks like brown spores there or rusty spores there. So I'm thinking it's Genopolis. And if it's Genopolis, and again here, see the rusting of the spores?
Yeah.
So I think you've got Genopolis at the base of the tree. It's a weak, really weak pathogen, almost, the tree's got to be having real issues. So an area that was dying off and it just got in and finished things off, or it's saprophytic. And mostly it's saprophytic. So, but that's what I do. A spore print, really useful in identification. The spore print needs to be taken on a piece of half black, half white paper. To get that, you photocopy a piece of blackboard halfway across and then put the spore cup in the middle. Put it down one evening or one morning, put a bowl over it, come back about 12 hours later, and you'll have a spore print. And that'll answer it for certain. If it's creamy white, it's armillaria and the tree is screwed. That's the end of it. No hope. If it's rusty brown, then just ignore it. Let it keep on going. Take care of the tree, and that's it. Maybe get rid of some of the turf grass and put some mulch around it.
It's a beautiful, vigorous tree. It's not showing any signs of decline, and I'm not doing anything about it regardless, just because it's my favourite tree on the property.
It's on your property?
Yeah.
Yeah, go out and grab a sample.
Yeah.
The photograph of the spore print. We all want to know now that your most important tree. I had a student a number of years ago, Niels, and he located armillaria on his property, and he made the appropriate decision and sold the property. Said there was no way he was going to have a property where he couldn't have trees. So yeah, he got rid of it. But that's just based on what I see. That's my gut level feeling is it's Genopolis.
Okay, good news.
But you confirm me right because that's really helpful.
Yeah, I'll go grab a spore print.
Oh, why won't it display that? Okay, I have another way of dealing with this. There's more than one way to skin a cat anyway. Oh, no, I won't say that. Open with. So this is another series of fruiting bodies.
All the same tree.
So it's the same images. Okay.
Yeah, same images. Yeah.
Now, could it be digesting the bark? The answer is yes. There are fungi, and there's some really cute little ones that will eat on the outer bark of many a tree, and they're not problematic. Not too much. We'll do it when there's high levels of suberin, but when the suberin levels aren't so high, often on some of the rougher bark trees, you'll find that fungi will grow. You get things like Eucalyptus cytoroxylin and Gomifera that exude huge amounts of kino. Not much grows where there's a lot of kino, and the reason the kino is there is protective. It's just exuded out in large quantities, and those sort of trees, the tannin in the kino is just a great antibiotic. It's what makes a piece of cow skin that would otherwise rot and become putrid turn into a nice fine leather garment. It's a pretty good antibiotic. You should grab a bit of kino at some stage or other. All of you should try it and put it in your mouth. You'll feel it very astringent and drying. You want to spit it out and rinse it down and get rid of it. It's not horribly tasting or anything, it's just drying out. And it's just a nasty little polyphenol that does some really good things to living tissue. So you don't worry about it. Remember that in part we're here in Australia because Captain James Cook realised there was a problem with scurvy, and he figured two things that were important in controlling it. One of them was making sure there was enough protein in their diet, and the other one making sure there was enough ascorbic acid. So lemons and leather became a part of their diet. So and that leather contained tannins, guarantee it. So it's not something that's fatal. And in fact, we like those things. Some of our wines we enjoy because of some of those notes in it. So yeah, great stuff. And that was something that Vicky shared with me during the week. So I think we've gone through all of them. Any other questions? No. Is everyone happy? Nope, I don't care.
Hey, Mark, I think I did have another lot of pictures up there.
Yep. Okay, David. Let me just
Nils, that was. Where was it?
Peter, did you have them?
I think I did see you flash past, and maybe that one. Yes, that's the one.
Yep. Thank you. Okay.
Ah, yes.
A fallen tree. Now let me get this silly screen thing across the one side. Can we get it over there? Yep, that's great. So we've got a tree that's fallen at some stage and has started to regrow. Yep. And done
Correct.
quite a good job of it. So what's your question with it, David?
Just what sort of triggers the growth to go straight up? Is it the light and the sun, or is it something else?
Yeah, good question.
Does the tree know what's up and down and sideways, or
phototropism? And there's some really good things that drive that, and some complex things as well. But one of the simplest things is want to get sunlight. Sunlight makes you grow, and the more sunlight you get, the more you grow. So in this situation, it's been able to get a message that the sunlight is basically up, and that's just by photoreceptors. There is far red avoidance, so that things will tend to grow away from far reds. If you grow jacarandas, don't grow them near a eucalypt, because they'll always have a lean. Why? Because the far red that's produced underneath the canopy of the eucalypt will provide enough stimulus that the jacaranda says, go away from it. If it's in shade, things grow away from a shaded area, largely due to a relationship with a chemical called auxin. Auxin causes elongation or extension, and it's photodegraded. So on the backside of a tree growing near a wall, it's not getting the photodegradation. So this side gets shortened up, stopped, don't grow, and this side gets the elongate, and so it elongates. It's just a wonderful, nice little relationship. And if we understood that, you'd understand why opaque stakes in a nursery are evil, because we wrap them close to the tree, we create a side where that's longer. So as soon as we remove that stake, the first thing we're going to do is get the tree one to go and bend over. And that's exactly what they do, because the whole time that's been wrapped and up against that little area on the backside there is getting less light. Now, the more that stake is on the shaded side or the southern side, the worse the problem becomes. In a perfect nursery growing environment, and we don't want that, because if we can stake, we get the tree to grow taller, and silly Mr. and Mrs. Consumer will buy it rather than leaving it behind. The ideal way to do it would be to have 3 stakes in the pot and just a loose little container, maybe some webbing or hessian or something like woven bagging type stuff, loose like you used to get in net bags, those sort of things, around the outside so it doesn't fall over. And you get it to start swaying. And when it sways, it gets these wonderful little chemical messages from an interesting calcium ion receptor in the cell wall of the living cells right adjacent to the outside that says, guys, beside me, cambium, start growing more wood here. Put some more cells on here. We need them. And it only takes about 10 seconds of stimulation. Guys have done research on this. This is fascinating. 10 seconds of movement a day for a tree to start strengthening itself up. And I say everyone should have a tree like that outside their front door. It's called the, I'm an arborist and I've got to deal with life tree, that when you get home, you can say, and shake it for 10 seconds, get rid of the aggression before you go inside. And watch it. It will thicken up fairly quickly. Soon you'll be able to come home and go, and won't do anything with the tree because it'll have firmed itself right up. So yeah, phototropism, there are a number of conditioning things. The great thing is it was left. And David, I have struggled for years just to see that, we don't always have to have trees the way we want them to be. And this is just one great way to see it. And for those of you who haven't yet travelled down and done it, Bland Street, Carramar in Sydney is got to be Sydney's best tree in my mind. Hopefully that's Bland Street, Carramar. Yes, it is. And Oakdean Park. And this tree fell over, if I remember, it was 1937 or something like that. I'll look it up.
Do you remember that, do you, Mark?
No, I'm not quite that old. But this tree fell over, and you can see there's one of the fallen stems there.
There it is, yeah.
There's one of the other fallen trees. And look what a magnificent, absolutely gorgeous tree. We just... we've got a view that every tree should be straight and upright. And it was one of the things that I noticed when I was in the Czech Republic was the same thing, outside the town hall in Bad Weiss, there's this fallen over tree, and they've just said, well, it's not affecting anyone. It's not a problem to leave it. Let's let it just grow on. And so I have two similar trees now on my property that have partially failed during the storm, and we said, well, there's no need for it to get cut down, and it can't fall much lower than the ground. So let's just leave it and let it grow. And let me just go back a couple of older shots on this. You can just see what a magnificent tree that is. Really is just a great, great tree. So, yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. Good question, though. Response to light, it's light driven. It's either light avoidance or photodegradation or light preference. Three things that affect it in different ways to make sure that it happens.
What about gravitropism?
Oh, no.
Phototropism.
So the general view is that gravitropism is related to stathyliths. They're able to sense starch, granular starch is quite a big aggregated sugar to figure out which way is up and down. I am still out on the verdict on it. I think it's not a good enough explanation yet. So, and perhaps somebody will come up with some really great experiments at some stage or other. But there's certainly a fairly obvious propensity for roots to grow downwards. And I wonder how you take out of that equation moisture. That is 2 atoms thick or 10 atoms thick. I can't pick that up with anything that I know of. And yet it wouldn't put it past the tree to be able to do that. So I'm hoping that at some stage or other, there's some more clear research on that gets rid of the water issue. And I don't know how you do that. I'm sure somebody will figure it out.
Well, apparently they're trying some experiments on the space station to see if it's stronger than phototropism. But
Yeah.
Regardless.
And they've germinated, and if you go to the capital of California, which starts with S, I can't think of what it is, Sacramento, you can see a tree planted outside the city hall there that they took the seeds to the moon and back. And what we know is that didn't stop them from growing. It's a big tree. So yeah, we'll learn. I guess the question is, do we really need to know why, or can we be satisfied to know that it happens? That is, generally roots grow downwards. And that first root is a sinker. It's a downward root, which is why pulling out a young privet, young camphor, young eucalypt is really hard, because that root is in tension, just like we discussed earlier on. It's just got the one screw in the bottom of the floorboards going up, and it holds it in place really well. It's as that dies off, and that happens as trees get older. Usually, again, when you're getting 60 or 70, 80 centimeter diameter trunks, it's interesting. It's at that point that the other things become less relevant. So things like decay and cavities are almost of non-consequence in many ways with bigger diameter trees. Okay. Well, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for sending in your images and your questions. And hopefully you'll join us next month when we do the same thing again. And I believe we are doing it next month, Peter. It's
I'm not sure.
it's the report writing one that gets close to the conference.
Yeah, that is likely.
Tips is the week before the conference, so tips will be going ahead next month.
Is war next week?
Yes, and I'm pleased to let you know that we have a guest speaker, Dr. Mike Olson, who will be talking to us about tree identification.
Okay, guys, have a great night. I'll catch you all later.